2 wins out of the last 3, and that little concern against the Bombers was not to be. We got it done and got it done pretty comfortably. And we've got 2 more home games ahead of the bye. It's really nice. There's a sense of calm around the Eagles, Drew Jones, at the moment, which is an enjoyable place to be.
Hey, absolutely. Funny old game on Sunday, wasn't it? But to be fair, we were composed enough. We had enough quality across the park. Essendon, who were obviously struggling injury-wise, but they didn't play great footy on the day. I think we handled the conditions marginally better, and we also had one Harley Reid and Reuben, 2 of our key young pillars, to get the job done.
Reuben was great, Harley too, and several others. Milan Murdoch again, fantastic. Kicked big goals when it mattered. Jakey up forward was sensational. I'm trying to think why we've been able to, why we got through that game without too much of a worry. Now, Essendon's injury list was a reason why, of course, and we attacked it. Our pressure's been maintained. But just looking over it again, and even the past couple of weeks, certainly the Collingwood game, I reckon we're just far calmer with the ball in hand. So, like, looking at those Richmond defeats, which we spoke about last week, like, why have we come unstuck in the few games where we've been favourites? Just feels like maybe we were a little bit too rushed on occasion, trying to go through the corridor with too much pace and making errors. And then whenever we've retreated a bit as a team, maybe going back over the last few years, whenever we've tried to keep possession, we've gone almost too slow, like laterally and almost invited pressure. I feel like we've got a really nice mix at the moment, and we're in a nice zone. When we're moving it across the ground and switching it, we're not just going laterally, we're actually starting to move the ball at angles. So when we switch it up to the wing, it's on like a 45-degree angle. So we're constantly moving up the field and putting the opposition under pressure. And then when we're going through the middle of the ground, we're just far cleaner with our skills now because we're getting better at a team and building more confidence. And we're picking the right moment more often than not in terms of when to go quick through the middle and when to go around the ground. And when we're doing it, we just seem to be more precise and actually passing the ball with purpose as opposed to just going side to side and the opposition set up nicely against us.
Feels like we've got a lot better cohesion with the way that we move the ball. I think if you watch the Melbourne and St Kilda games, you'd be very unimpressed with our ball movement. But I just think since then it's taken a step forward. I think it feels like we have more players open and available to receive like a 20 to 30 metre kick, which we're more often than not hitting. So that's probably a combination of work rate, fitness, and also, where the players are more attuned to where they should be and where they're supposed to be heading and all that sort of thing. But, a guy like Willem Dersma, to me, like, he feels like he's got both sides. Like, he can get the ball inside, he can get a contested ball, he can get a handball receive, but he also seems to pop up around the ground. And that, like, just for him in particular, that feels like, it makes it feel like Willem's in the game a lot because he's got all these different ways that he can influence and get his hands on the pill. And I think he was really good against Essendon as well. We got smashed in the clearances, which was a little bit of a surprise, given that we have been good in that area recently. Our midfielders are in good form. And I think going into the game, there was an expectation that Bailey Williams would have had sort of the advantage in the ruck against Bryan and Blackiston. So that was a bit strange, but we didn't let it spiral out of control. And the pressure was probably good enough, I'd say, around the ball to mean that, Jimby and Tyler Young could both play, pretty impressive games. So it's probably heartening in hindsight to think, well, we lost it significantly in one area, 45 to 23 clearances. But we didn't let it ruin our day. Like, we still found another way to compete, another way to win. So that's promising. I think across the board, there were some pretty impressive performances. I just want to, just while this is in my brain, Willem Dersma almost gets better week on week. And I spoke about how impressed I was with him on the podcast last week, watching him play live. He's got to be pretty comfortably the rising star favourite, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think Jagger Smith is there with him, and I know people will always say that if Smith ever gets mentioned, it's Vic bias. But Jagger Smith did start the season really strongly, better than Dersma, and then he went quiet. But his last 2 weeks have been really good; those numbers are high. So it feels like a two-horse race. I don't think anyone else is getting close to them at the moment. I still think Shanahan should be in discussions more than he is. I know he's not going to win it, but he's still, like, as a key position player, it's much harder to do what he does as a teenager than, a Dersma or Jagger Smith, because your body's just not developed yet. I still find it odd that he gets left out of the discussions. Trembath has, gone a bit cold, and Roby's really good, but, I just don't think he's at the level of Smith and Dersma just yet. I think he will be. It seems like a two-horse race, and I think it's fair that it's neck and neck. I'm not of the opinion that Dersma's way ahead. I think he's narrowly ahead of Jagger Smith. I do. I've got him at just a smidgen in front, but I think it's going to be a pretty close race between the two of them. I do think Dersma will win, though, because I think over the course of the season, he will show a lot more than Jagger will. Jagger will be, and this is part of the reason why we didn't take Jagger Smith. Now, he's a quality player, but the word was he's an accumulator. He's not going to hurt you that much. Now, he still will a bit when you get that much of the ball, but he's not necessarily a game breaker, whereas Dersma is. Not that was the decision that we had, but we went for a Bo Allen type and got more out of the trade, of course, with Baker coming in, because, Jagger was a player that you can replicate in others. Try and replicate what Dersma does in another player. Good luck. And I think over the course of that season, and barring injury, that will show and he'll win out.
Yeah, I think I agree with you about Jagger Smith. I think he's shown early in his career that he's able to get the ball, but I don't see anywhere near as much damage being inflicted. When he's, Dersma's also laying big tackles and taking hangers and kicking great goals from 50, which Jagger's not doing. I think the all-round package from Dersma is extremely impressive. Was there anything else?
I just want to, there is. I wanted to make a point. 2 letters for you. TK. I reckon he had a huge influence in us wrestling back momentum against the Bombers when they started to get on top and they were winning numerous clearances and, they could have taken advantage with the wind. I reckon he was the key. And if you actually scale it back, there are a couple of points here. Firstly, the decision to give him a 2-year contract has proven to be a very shrewd one. And there was a lot of negativity around it. Kane Corns was scoffing. A lot of Eagles fans were going, what on earth are we doing? Are we that dumb? Well, clearly we weren't, because we needed the experience, firstly. And I don't think he's on massive money either on this 2-year deal. And let's not forget, at the start of the season, Tom McCarthy was nailed down as a midfielder. And I've heard Tom McCarthy say this, the only reason I've gone to half back is because Tim Kelly's form was too good. And he got back in over me. Kelly was on the fringes at the start of the season. Sort of a backup midfielder. We're going with McCarthy and Harley. And they went, well, hang on, he's looking that good. Sorry, Tom, you're back to half back. And look how it's impacted our team. Because, yes, Yo and Reed, we know what they're going to do. Kelly coming in and having the season that he's having is having an enormous impact on the West Coast Rise.
If this was the NFL, he'd win the comeback player of the year. That would be that's the sort of areas that he's in, because he's been nowhere, let's be honest.
He won a club champion 2 years ago.
No, and as in of recent times, he's been nowhere, to the point where he was playing half-forward flank last year and then said, put me back in the waffle, I'll earn my spot back in the midfield. And then, not being picked round 1, he'd come in with the hamstring, but in previous years under, previous regimes, Kelly's just automatically picked in that situation, but he had to earn his way back in and then earn the extra minutes. And then, as you say, takes over as one of our main mids, and at the moment is a part of the, the best clearance combination quartet in the competition. But he continues to be influential and impactful, Garby, each game. And it's great to see it's making a massive difference for us. That's why we're winning games, because senior players are playing really good footy for us and furnished so beautifully with these youngsters. You mentioned Milan Murdoch before. What a revelation. And
yes,
and he was good early in the year just playing as a forward. But now this combination of shutting down, but also, and which he's done with enthusiasm and tenacity, but then hitting the scoreboard. Set the tone early for us, made sure Roberts didn't get a foothold in the game. He kicked that great check side. He's a good finisher, for a guy who he's got his way into the AFL by sheer force of will and incredible amount of fitness, athleticism, all that stuff. But then give the ball to him inside 50 and give him a crack at the goals. He seems to nail him from everywhere. So, yeah, and it heartens me that, players can get these opportunities and can really take them with both hands. And I love that we took the risk on him and brought him in via the SPP. And I'm so hopeful that, Herbert will get his opportunity in this last part of the year and he can hopefully nail down a spot as well.
Yeah, Chimby was immense again. I mean, it's been fantastic. Like, saw the mid-season All-Australian team. I don't have too many complaints with it. Like, Wilkie deserves to be there. I watched Tom McCartan closely. He's having a very good season. So he was in the mid-season All-Australian team on the AFL website, and Alir was there. But I looked at it and I went, okay, that's fine. But it wouldn't surprise me as the season goes on if, one of them drops out, Alir or McCartan, and the other one goes to centre half back, and you name Reuben Ginbey in a back pocket in the All Australian team. Like, he's in the squad right now, nailed down as we've discussed, but he's getting the recognition around the nation at the moment. Like, he is coming in for discussions across all the shows, and the new contract's fantastic. Is he the next captain of the club? Feels like it's either he or Harley. He'd probably be the front runner at this stage. What a footballer he's become for West Coast.
It was clearly his best ever game, or certainly his most all-round performance because of the intercept marks.
He's taking marks now. He's taking marks now. That is the key, isn't it?
And that changes things. That makes him into an offensive threat. And, geez, you love to see it. Like, it was almost one of my favourite parts of the game was watching his impact for us. So I think he's had 33 one-on-ones this year and lost 3 of those. It's incredibly impressive percentage in terms of winning percentage. And let's not forget, there's been a portion of the season where we've been getting our asses handed to us. And he was able to hold up through that period. And now, he obviously he copped a bit of a barrage in terms of the amount of clearances that Essendon have won. But ideally, with the pressure that we're applying being so high, and again, the pressure was impressive on the weekend, winning clearances and putting pressure on, it allows your backs to flourish. And hopefully this is giving Ginbey an opportunity to take his game to a new level, as we saw in the wind and the rain on Sunday night. And he gets an opportunity probably up against Georgiades this week, another big test. But he's had plenty of big tests this year already, and he's passed all of them, really.
Yeah. The other point I wanted to make, and this really stood out to me watching the clip that West Coast put up over the last couple of days, a little bit of Minnie's pre-game speech, then the post-game speech. I reckon I've seen a change in the coach. And we sort of hinted at it after the Richmond loss, when the heat came in a big way for him and he went on 360 and Gary put some questions to him and he bristled a bit. I reckon it started, across those 2 weeks, the Saints and Richmond, where his frustration started to boil. I think a switch went off in him and he's just started to become just a little bit angrier in a positive way. And almost as if enough's enough, all right, I've got to get a bit tougher here. Enough of the teaching and more of the delivering. And just watch the way that he speaks in that video. He seems to do so with a lot more authority than he has done in the past. I think his confidence is lifting as a coach, which is only natural. It's not something that gets spoken about a lot, but confidence comes with coaches as well. It's not just with players. They have a couple of good weeks in the box, a couple of good moves, team has a win. They feel a bit stronger and more comfortable in their own shoes. He just seems to be a little bit stronger at the moment. I mean, his delivery seems a little bit different in those videos. And, it came out in a big way and was noticeable for me.
I'd be interested to know, I guess these are not the sort of conversations that necessarily play out publicly, but I'd be interested to know if he did deliver a few home truths over that fortnight and he got the response from the players and whether that has allowed him to gain that confidence. And then you make a few good moves in the box, which we've talked about. Tactically, he's nailed a few. You get a few wins under your belt. I think he masterminded a really great performance against Collingwood. We didn't quite get the win. Things didn't all go our way. He's had a really good month, and I think the fact that you've identified that sort of the marrying up of the harder edge that he that he showed publicly, and I'm guessing privately, especially after the Richmond game, and the fact that he feels like he's more confident outwardly since then. I think that makes a lot of sense. And he's a first-time coach. I mean, he's coaching an AFL side for the first time, so he's learning on the job. Of course, he's going to gain in confidence as things start to go well. We won one game last year, so
yeah,
it's promising signs. And I think we've acknowledged this a few times. Like it's a part of his coaching. It's a side of him that needs to progress and develop if we're going to become a side that's competing for flags.
It just feels like the fan response after those 2 weeks was enough's enough. Like, this is bullshit, line in the sand kind of stuff. And it feels like that was his feeling as well. All right, enough of the process and being the teaching coach. Of course, he's still going to do that stuff, but now things have got to switch a little bit here because, as we said, he was stepping into the midway point of the season with a year and a half left on his contract. Like, if things didn't improve, then, he starts to feel very insecure about his job. And it's almost if you realise that, all right, we've actually got to start moving here. I've noticed something different in him in a really positive way. At the same time, he's not getting carried away. Very calm. And I loved it in that post-game message. It's straight on to Port, 6-day break. We go again. They seem to be getting less carried away with the wins now, a lot calmer about things. So, great. And hopefully they can back it up against Port this week. The other big story and positive sign to come out of the week was Marcus Herbert's performance in the waffle. Oliver Franco, good as well, but Herbert looked sensational. Not sure if you've seen the highlights, but super impressive.
The double spin, you saw that? Went into the pack, spun out of one tackle, and then did it again. The pirouette from Herbert, times 2. But he's a beast. He's an absolute unit. Geez. I mean, if he plays like that again, it's going to be hard for Mini not to pick him. I'm really excited to see what he can do at AFL level. An opportunity will come for him, and what role we use him in, I'm really fascinated in, because we all want to see Elijah Hewitt get a crack in the second half of the year, but we also want to see Herbert, and we probably want to see Franco as well. Like there's genuine selection pressure on. Starcevic is playing this week. Like it's pretty exciting, but Herbert has shown that he's ready. I think he's shown he's ready.
Yeah, Starcevic, was obviously just getting through minutes, but there's a couple of clips where you went, oh, he's so much better than that level. Like, it's actually ridiculous. And you can see why he comes straight back in. Who goes out? I mean, we're recording this on a Thursday arvo, so most people will listen when the team's out. So there's no point really speculating, but it's hard to really pick at someone who's guaranteed to go out of the team. I think Duff Tytler will come in for Williams. That's just my feeling at this stage. And Marrick and Bo Allen and Harvey Johnston, might be battling to hold on to their spots with so much pressure coming from Starcevic in and then Herbert pushing and Tommy Gross and Hewitt still pushing. There's serious selection pressure, and that's probably driving performances forward. But Herbert looked fantastic. And I saw one comment on social media like, if he's coming in and dominating like this and, the other mid-season draft picks dominated, then what does that say about our development? He's 24. He's coming from an elite VFL program in Geelong at a league that is of a much higher standard, the VFL, than the Waffle. Well, certainly higher, maybe not much higher. Of course he's going to come in and be a level above. Like, what do you expect? The rest of the players are 18, 19 pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why we're not going to try and make it into a negative. I mean, he came, he's a ready-made guy coming into a league that's partially for development. He's going to be miles ahead of guys who are 18 or 19. Do you think you just go Marrick for Starcevic? Marrick's sort of one, to me, he seems to be the guy that's kind of floating a little bit. He can play a few different roles. Like, I like him. At the moment, he's probably a good squad player, and let's see where his development goes. I think he is out of contract at the end of the season. At the moment, they had a crack with him down back, but they don't need him there anymore. So I think
he's playing on the wing. Yeah,
if they can cover him on the wing, I think he's the guy that I would take out. But it might be Bo Allen.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think I'd rather get games into Bo.
Yeah, it feels like Bo or Marek for Starcevic as we speak. The thing of Marek is like, you won't see him much in a game and you'll be thinking, oh, geez, he's going to struggle to get in. And then he'll just like laser a kick, like a 40-metre pass on someone's chest. And you'll go, well, that's why he's in the team. He is still a bloody good kick. And people try to bag him, but he is one of our better users. And, we've spoken about the wing position and it can be tough. And he is one of the guys who can cut off a 45er or he can hit a really important pass. Doesn't do it enough. He's, far from a gun wingman, but it sort of keeps him in the team. But I'm kind of with you. Like, if Bo's been playing half back, then maybe we move him up to the wing and Starcevic slots into defence. That makes sense, keeping Bo in the side and giving him games over Marek. But it's a tricky call. So the selection will be really interesting this week. And, there's not too much you can argue with at the moment. And I've loved the way that they stuck with it. Like Duff Tytler missed out against the Bombers and that was surprising. But, he's rewarding the guys who are performing and that is putting even more pressure on them to turn up and go hard the next week because they know there is someone ready to come in and take their spot if they drop off just a little bit. And Jack Williams probably did a bit in a tough night for key position players because the conditions weren't great. But you went, all right, well, Cooper probably comes in for you. But that's what we're looking at the moment, and it's definitely improving things.
It was always going to be hard. Whoever played out of Jack and Coop, it was going to be a tough night. But having said that, Waterman had plenty of shots at goal and made the most of his. And, he got opportunities and he was in the right place at the right time. But, yeah, I think at the moment, I default to every game we don't play Duff Tytler is one game less development. And we're in a rush. Like, we want Duff Tytler to get games under his belt, develop, and become the superstar that we hope that he's going to be. But I realise, you can't fast forward it. And team selection, integrity, all that stuff matters. But I would have liked to have seen him back in, but I think he certainly can't. He'll be back this week.
I would have thought so. And then, you think there might be a rest for Dersma at some stage, but there's only 2 weeks to the bye and they get the rest then. So same with like a Yo, for example. Does he get managed at some stage? But 2 weeks to the bye, keep the momentum going, and then they get a week off. And, geez, if we can knock off Port and North, and then you've got Carlton after the bye, having not travelled for 3 or a month, basically, you're fresh. My goodness, the draw gets a lot tougher in the second half of the season, but it's possible we could be seriously in wildcard discussions within the next 3 weeks without wanting to get carried away.
Yeah, so we need Carlton to sort of lose a bit of momentum. They've got this bounce off Fraser. So that'll be a tough task. And North Melbourne are a much improved side, but they're missing Finn O'Sullivan, who's a pretty key cog for them. So there's a little window there against North next week. And we get the game at Optus. We don't have to bother going to Bunbury, which was really tricky with those conditions last year. That extra time at home makes me think, well, maybe they may not have to rest these guys. But, thinking about Hewitt and Clay Hall, who have been going well in the Waffle, Tom Gross is having a good season, and then you've got Herbert and
Finn
Franco
McRae.
And Finn McRae. Like, if we did want to rest someone, it feels like we'd have at least competent in-form replacement coming into the side. So, that's at least something for McQualter to work with.
Can you explain to me, and I'm not getting carried away and saying it's a locked-in 4 points, far from it. We're still one of those sides that's going to be inconsistent. Let's brace ourselves for that. We could still have we're going to have a couple of disappointing moments between now and the end of the season. Hopefully not, but it's more likely than not. Can you explain to me why Port Adelaide are favourites?
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is, well, they've beaten Geelong this year. And, that's the only thing they've really got to hang their hat on. They're a very, look at their team and their list, very average. But they have some good players. Like Horne-Francis tends to play well against us. Georgiades is a beast, as we know. Zach Butter's, superstar. But, Lear, as you mentioned, in All-Australian sort of contention. But they're a bit thin. There's a lot of young guys in that team. There's a lot of sort of role players who aren't going to hurt you too much. I just think if we can keep them under control, like if we can, if Hoff can slow Butters down a bit, if Reed and Horne-Francis go head to head, I'm backing Reed in, to make a massive impact in the game, because he's taken such amazing strides forward. I think this is a great opportunity to knock off Port, who it feels like sometimes come to Optus Stadium and nick the points off us. But I feel pretty confident that we'll get it done. But in terms of why they're favourites, the only thing I can think of is, well, they've beaten Geelong. They're capable.
And maybe coming off the bye, it's like that they'll be fresher.
Maybe.
We've got a 6-day break. That's the only argument I can think of. But I think we deserve to be favourites. I think based on the odds I've seen, they should be flipped around. I really like us this week. Like, you've got Butters and Horne-Francis, so you really need to match it with the middle. So Hoffy, does he go to Butters or Horne-Francis? Probably Horne-Francis, I reckon. But he can move around the ground a bit, so that's interesting. And who does Milan take on this week? Is it Kane Farrell or Darcy Byrne-Jones? There's not a straight-up tag option for the little man across our forward, is there?
I think he just gets dangerous, but
maybe Burgoyne.
Yeah, he could look after. Like Farrell's got a good kick. He's never been prolific, Farrell, in terms of the amount of possessions that he gets. But I think the system's working. So identify who is the dangerous rebounder and give Milan that job. Seems to relish it, and it's not affecting him. Like, he seems to be getting dangerous anyway. So I think Farrell's the right call, probably. Burgoyne can be a bit destructive at times if on the wing or at half back. One to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, so we just got to match it with those guys in the middle. They've got similar to the Giants game where it's like, okay, Callahan, Ash, Oliver, some good forwards, but then it falls away a bit. It's got to be that kind of approach. Just, like Chinby on Cadman, Chinby on Georgiades, and then the other guys just do your job, and then just find a way to keep Butters or Horne-Francis as quiet as possible, one of the two with Hoffy, and the other's got to work. And then we should have a bit more class than them around the ground at home on a Saturday night to get it done. I feel really good about a win, and I don't always get in that zone. I didn't like us against the Giants necessarily, but I really think it's win time for us on Saturday night.
Yeah, I agree. So you're going to the World Cup, Daniel. So are they going to be sort of hotel room Zooms, or are you offline for 4 weeks?
There will be moments, hopefully, where I can chime in on the pod, and I'll be watching I've really looked at the time zones and how it's going to match up, and I think I'll be okay to follow the progress. But they may not be as regular as they have been in recent times, but if we win the next 2, it'll be hard to keep me off the nest, that's for sure. But looking forward to it. Go the Socceroos. It's going to be amazing. But I'll be watching the Eagles very closely from the United States, that's for sure.
Can't wait. Good luck for the World Cup, mate. You deserve another opportunity to shine on the world football's biggest stage. So good luck. Go well.
It's going to be great. Meet up with lots of Eagles fans over there, plenty of Aussies, no doubt. So looking forward to it. Thanks all. Go the Eagles this week.